Perry thinks about changing negatives to positive. Perry Thinks is number 4 in the Our Life Skills series. Written and illustrated by Susie Chase Motzkin. Copywritten 2011. The illustrations in this book are left without color so that readers can express themselves creatively and become more invested in the story. No part of this book may be reproduced, transmitted, or stored in an information retrieval system in any form or by any means, graphic, electronic, or mechanical, including photocopying, typing, and recording, without prior written permission from the author. Our Life Skills Help at gmail.com. Author's note. Studies on consciousness go back as far as written history. Prophets, physicists, psychologists, psychiatrists, anthropologists, and neuroscientists, to name a few, have tried to understand the human psyche and the processes of the brain and its effect on the body and one's environment. Present technology enables us to map the brain and its electromagnetic emissions to determine how thought processes affect outcomes in our physical being. More difficult to quantify is how thoughts affect what experience come into our lives or how others are influenced by our thoughts. Research shows, however, that one's thoughts can influence other living things. People who have an unshakable sense of conviction that they have the goods to be successful are often at the top of their field, whether in sports, arts, or business. Was it because I grew up fairly free of worry with parents who reassured me? Their outlook on life was practical, and they met challenges head on. When I faced conflict or contrast, they suggested I ask myself if I could change the situation. Would action make a difference for the better? Act on what you can do and avoid fretting about things that have already happened. Learn from the situation and move on, all the wiser. Change what you can and let go of the things that are unchangeable. My father placed a significant emphasis on thinking critically. He would exercise our brains at the dinner table by having us figure out the answers to our own questions. Through our conversations, we were able to talk through various scenarios and rationally discern which tactics were best to follow. Instead of thinking we had problems, we considered the situation instead to be a challenge for which we could find a solution. Even with all those thinking strategies, an important element was missing. My sister-in-law taught me it. She demonstrated exactly how powerful self-talk and thinking were in accomplishing one's goals. One night at dinner, she showed us an activity that would change from that moment on how I raised my children and coached athletes. This activity convinced me, and all who I have shown it to, the remarkable results of switching words around to elicit a positive response or outcome. The results are undeniable, as Perry and his friends learn in this story. People develop habits of thinking which can be either useful or harmful to living a happy life. By practicing more positive self-talk, our health can be improved, and we will often accomplish our goals because of it. When teaching or instructing others, framing those instructions positively will elicit far better outcomes. Children constantly observe and model what they see. Family members who speak about themselves negatively as a habit will likely affect the youngsters around them. By practicing positive self-talk and thinking, we can give our children the tools to move through life successfully. Families that use positive language and practice positive thinking as a habit will find great happiness. There is brain plasticity research indicating even people who are aging or aged can redirect neural pathways. It is their behavior modification and self-talk that turns the switch. So it would seem we can always continue to create a better or happier me. With love and positive thoughts, Susie Chase Motzkin. Perry opened the mailbox with great anticipation. His friend Mike had just called to say he received the notice telling him who his sixth grade teacher was going to be. Mike was assigned to Miss Batalico's class and shared with Perry, "I hear she's really nutty and she gives strange assignments to the class. There are all kinds of rumors. I wish I had Mr. Morgan. I hear he never gives homework." Perry did not know what to think. He had also heard the rumors. Among the mail, Perry spotted the school logo on an envelope. He excitedly ran inside to tell his mother. It was not a teacher he was hoping for. Anyone other than Miss Batalico. During the previous weeks, he had said to himself over and over, "I don't want Miss Batalico." Perry's mouth dropped open when he read the words. Mommy just smiled and told him she was sure he would make the most of the situation. Perry jumped on his bike and rode to Mike's house to share the news. On the way over, he passed his neighbor, Allie, who was just getting into her mother's car. She called out, stopping Perry. "Hey, Perry, what teacher do you have this year? I have Miss Batalico." "Me too. It will be a new adventure, I guess," answered Perry. "We're in the same class. My mom takes yoga with her and thinks she will be a great teacher for us," said Allie as she entered the car. Perry choked out, "I hope so," as he started to pedal his bike away down the lane. On the first day of school, all the kids were scattered around the classroom, loudly talking with each other when the bell rang to begin school. Instead of yelling out to the class to take their seats, Miss Batalico softly said they could finish their conversations. When they were ready, they could quietly sit in their chairs to begin class. She smiled and sat at her desk with her hands folded. It got louder for a moment. Then the kids gradually quieted and found their seats. Miss Batalico began with, "Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the sixth grade. You may have noticed that I allowed you to finish your conversations. I did so because it is respectful, and I'm sure that you will be just as respectful to me. You may call me Miss B, and we will work and learn together. I look forward to learning from you too." Late in the day, the class was instructed to write down the question, "What do I want to be when I grow up, and how will I make it happen?" The class was told to write a 3-paragraph essay as she had illustrated on the board. Perry was flabbergasted there was any homework on the first day of school. Miss B was on a mission. "I would like you to do the essay in a certain order. Today you will sit quietly for 5 minutes with your eyes closed and only pay attention to your breathing. Immediately after, spend at least 15 minutes writing your outline. Think about it for a while, and then tomorrow add to the outline. Wednesday, you will begin writing the paper. Thursday, you will look it over and edit. On Friday, you will bring it to school. Any questions?" she said as the bell rang, ending the school day. On the bus, Allie plopped herself into the seat next to Perry. She groaned. "Miss B is pretty peculiar, smiling all the time like she knew a secret. My mom started doing this inner smile thing when she gets frazzled. She learned it at that yoga class with Miss B, and I'm trying to understand why she wants us to sit with our eyes closed before writing." Perry pondered. "Well, I guess it's like meditating to clear the mind or something. Do you have any idea what you want to be or do?" "I have it all figured out. I'm going to be a famous actress, she boasted. A famous one. I've never seen you in any school plays, Perry smiled. Allie giggled. Good things take time, and I'm working on it. How about you? Perry settled into the seat and fixed his eyes on the scenery they were driving by. He sighed to Allie. I have not decided. He did not have to say much more. Allie went on and on about the play she was thinking of doing and the part of the city she would move to one day. Perry's mother was waiting for him in the kitchen with a snack when he returned home. She excitedly asked him how his first day had turned out. Perry plunked himself at the table and put his head in his hands. We got our first assignment today. We have to write about what we want to be and how we think we're going to make it happen. Geez, I'm only in 6th grade. I do not have a plan yet. Mommy kissed his forehead, saying, I'm sure you will come up with something interesting. As it turned out, Perry actually enjoyed writing his paper. He decided that being a doctor would be interesting when he was looking at surgery images on the internet. He imagined himself in an operating room working with robotic tools. He thought about how he was going to accomplish a goal like that. In his research, he found there would be a lot of studying, followed by a lot of testing. He wrote that he was not sure if he could do the testing part because he often switched numbers and letters when reading. The following Monday, Miss B held the stack of essays in her hand as she addressed the class. I was so impressed by all the things you want to do when you grow up. You all did a great job on the what and the why part of the essay. Almost every one of you had difficulty with the how part of the essay. Everyone wrote of problems rather than solutions to accomplishing their goals, and everyone used negative language at one point or another. The kids looked puzzled as she continued. For instance, Miss B read off the papers. If I don't fail my exams, I might be able to get into the right school. And I want to be a professional basketball player, but I'm not tall enough. And I want to own a company, but that takes a lot of money. The only exception was someone who wrote, I will go to every audition until I get hired. Perry immediately looked to Allie, who was triumphantly smiling. Allie, will you please come up to the front of the class? You too, Mike, Miss B said. They looked around the class and shrugged their shoulders. Mike stood like a giant next to Allie. Mike puffed up his chest and flexed his muscles when Miss B questioned, would you all agree that Mike might be a bit stronger than Allie? The class laughed in agreement. Mike, you are going to hold your arm out to the side, and Allie is going to try to pull it down. While holding your arm out, say 3 times, I will hold my arm up. Mike raised his arm and repeated the words, I will hold my arm up. Try as she might, Allie could not pull down Mike's arm. Miss B instructed Mike to change the words to, don't drop my arm. Holding his arm out, Mike repeated, don't drop my arm 3 times. Allie pulled his arm and it flopped down to his side. Everyone laughed. Wait a minute. I wasn't ready, protested Mike. Let me try again. Of course you can try it again, Miss B agreed. Again he repeated, don't drop my arm, and again Allie easily pulled his arm down. Miss B suggested he change the words back to hold my arm up. When he repeated those words, his arm held strong. The class buzzed and Mike smiled. Everyone find a partner and try it, Miss B instructed. Soon everyone experienced the power of the language. There was a lot of laughter and protest. Some argued that it had to be a trick. Miss B answered, "Your thoughts and language tell the brain and body what to do. When you say, 'Don't drop my arm,' by the time the brain converts what not to do into what it should do, the body has already dropped the arm. It takes too long for the brain to sort out all of the options when using negatives like can't or don't. Your next assignment is to observe others, list examples of their uses of negative language when giving instructions or speaking of themselves." Perry's parents gave him nothing to write down. In fact, it was like they had heard the assignment and purposely avoided the use of negatives. His father came close. When Perry reached across the table, he said excitedly, "Watch your glass of milk." Perry realized that it was positive, even though it was louder than normal. It reminded him of a time when he was younger at his grandma's house. She had called out, "Don't spill your milk." Within moments, it was splashed across the table. Perry began to understand why he might have knocked it over. His grandma should have said, "Keep the glass of milk upright." Perry, who was mostly happy and successful, found it interesting that his parents were mostly positive and encouraging. He thought, however, of his troubled friend whose parents always pointed out problems and called him bad. The following day in gym class, while playing basketball, the teacher gave Perry plenty of examples. The teacher yelled, "Don't throw the ball that way. You can't travel with the ball, and don't crowd the ball." Not once did he say anything positive to the class. Though Perry had tried to do a better job, he just kept on getting worse. Then after school, during soccer practice, the coach did the same thing. He kept telling the team what they were doing wrong. Then he would add a reinforcing statement like, "Don't touch that ball with your hands." Then they started to play. Perry kept on thinking about what not to do instead of what he should do. This made him play poorly. He realized that when he switched the words around in his head to a positive statement, he improved. He started to see how thought and language affected his performance. When Perry returned home, their neighbor was talking with his mother. She loved to talk and was going on and on about her latest surgery. She even lifted her shirt to reveal the bandage on her belly. She moaned about having so many problems with her health. Perry noticed that as long as he could remember, she rarely said something was good. She only spoke of suffering. She would say something like, "I hope I don't get an infection in the hospital," and it would happen. Or, "I know I'm going to get the flu that's going around," and then she would get ill. Thinking about his neighbor reminded him about his friend who always complained about not doing well in school. He would say, "I'm terrible at taking tests." Even though he would study and know the material, his grades were usually bad. At school, Miss B asked the students about their observations. Who would like to share some examples? A boy shared a story about being in the car with his parents. Mom was driving and Dad said, "Don't turn into that lane." Just after he said it, she turned into the lane anyway. Dad whined that Mom never listens to him. So I told them about the arm thing we did in class, and they thought it was neat. Dad said he would try to say something like, "Stay in this lane in the future." "That's a great example," replied Miss B. Another boy raised his hand. "My bus driver yelled, 'Don't stand up while the bus is moving.' He has to say it almost every day." Maybe if he had said, "Sit down while the bus is moving," he wouldn't have to say it all the time. She agreed and called upon Perry next. Yesterday, the phys ed teacher and our soccer coach kept on using negatives. They both said, "Don't this or that," and when they said something positive, it was about what we were doing wrong. Last summer at soccer camp, the coaches who were professional athletes only told us how to do things better. When they pointed out our mistakes, they always followed with ways to improve our performance. One of the athletes gave a talk about how he made it to the Olympics. He said that success depends upon a lot of hard work and a positive attitude. Now I really understand what he was talking about, Perry shared. Yes, Perry, how we choose to speak or think can make all the difference in the world. By being aware of our thinking, we can change negatives into positives. When we do that, we can change our lives for the better. Miss B pointed to Allie, who had been waving her hand excitedly. Allie responded, "You sound just like my mother. She always tells me I can do or be anything I put my mind to. She always makes me change 'I can't' to 'I can' or 'I will try.' Sometimes it is really hard to do." Yes, Allie, it takes a lot of self-discipline to get started, but after a while, it will come naturally. A boy in the back of the class hesitantly raised his hand. Miss B called upon him before he could put it down. "Whenever my dad gets a new job, he always complains about his boss not being fair, or they never appreciate how hard he works. He can't seem to keep a job longer than a few months. How can I help him be more positive?" Miss B answered thoughtfully, "There's not much we can do to change other people. We can only change how we think and speak. Hopefully others will learn by our example. Maybe if you appreciate him, he will feel better about himself. When we believe in ourselves and our capabilities, others also start to believe. My mother always says what we fear the most is attracted to us, like magnets attract metal, because we worry about it too much. She says it's better to focus our attention on what we want instead of what we don't want," Allie added. Perry excitedly interrupted. "Yes, like our neighbor who is always talking about having problems with her health. It seems that she was always getting sick. When I broke my arm, I thought really hard about it healing quickly. It did, way faster than anyone thought possible." Allie, I believe your mother is right. And Perry, people do get into habits. Some people chew on pencils or are always late to appointments. There can be habits of thinking too, like being angry, impatient, or worried. I've noticed that people who dwell on the negative things in their lives seem to attract more negative things. Like any habit, we can train ourselves to change. It may be difficult in the beginning, but with practice and attention, our choices in language or action can affect positive change. We are the only ones responsible for choosing what to think or say to ourselves and to others. We can all make being positive a habit. Miss B instructed the class to rewrite the how part of their essay. Everyone was to find the negatives and change them to positives. She told the class she was hoping they would remember this assignment as they continued on their life journeys. Perry certainly did. The end.